What's going on, guys? Your boy Random Guy Kev here, and I'm back with Josh Warren from Milsim West. I want to continue our conversation. So, can you tell us about the New York Times article? How did that come about, and how did they get interest and all that jazz?
Sure. Basically, somebody got assigned to write this article about the Milsim hobby at the New York Times. His name's Chris Jones, and he started going around to fields in his local area. I think he went to Strikeforce specifically, and asking people where to find these events. And people told him to go to Milsim West. So he found us. We talked a little bit. Before he came out, he sort of. I'd say he probably spent like 20 hours interviewing me, Brian, a couple other people, Jet Del Castillo, some of the other MSW cadre before he came out. So we had a pretty good idea of like what he wanted to talk about. He's a Marine Corps veteran. He was like a 0351 or whatever, a machine gunner. I don't know what the code is for it for Marine Corps, but so I knew like he kind of had he could at least he was somebody who could understand where we were all coming from, right? And I figured he'd probably write as fair of an article as he could, which he said he would. It was kind of clear from the beginning that, they did have like some editorial bias as far as like wanting to talk about the gun violence problem in America and how it relates to the hobby. I think I handled that pretty well. You can see it in the, it's in the article. It's basically my response is like, can you blame model train enthusiasts for like the racist practices of the Union Pacific Railroad concerning Chinese immigrants in the late 18th or 19th century? Like, come on, man, we're just trying to have a hobby, and we're like already pretending to kill people in the hobby. So that's all I really had to say about that. Like he was pretty open-minded. It was kind of a long process. It probably took like 8 months to come out. In that 8-month time frame, like a lot of shit changed, right? Like they came to this event in February, and then in March, like the pandemic happened. So at one point in like May, he was all pissed off talking to me because he was like, "Oh man, like this editor wants me to write about how like everybody that goes to Milsim events are like COVID disbelieving, non-mask wearing white supremacists." And I was like, "Oh man," because the pictures are from February, right? So this other guy, Chris Lee, they're both named Chris, which is a little confusing, but the other guy who did the photos, like, they came out there and took all these photos because it was going to be in the style section, right? Because I kept kind of saying like, hey, this isn't that serious. It's not like training. You could spend $250 and go to a rifle training course with some Delta guy or some SEAL guy. That's everywhere. You can find that everywhere. This is specific. It's just for fun. And, they're going to try and like use these photos of us from February where like no one even was thinking about wearing masks yet. Right. And I'm like, oh my God, like we're going to look crazy. Like all the photos are us not wearing masks. And then that went away. And then it was like right around the election. And they like wanted to talk about like how, well, no, this came out before the election. This came back out in September. But there was a point like where we thought it was going to be really political, and then like the thing that actually came out was like pretty even-handed. They mentioned Tamir Rice in the article, which I thought was like, a little odd. Like, yeah, he didn't get killed holding an airsoft gun, but that's like, like every time you're going to write a story about like Ferrari racing, and you got to mention like there was that one guy who ran Tactical Taylor who lived in Puyallup, Washington, who bought a Ferrari he was driving too fast and he crashed and died. Yeah. Like, I don't know why the fuck you would report on F1 and then be like, oh, that's interesting. You're driving the same car that this man had an accident in. 13 years ago. And that was the only thing that made it in there, was just kind of a like, hey, gun violence is bad and kids have been shot with airsoft guns in their hand, right? But you got to think about like who's reading the New York Times style section, right? Right. So considering that, and then the version that was actually in print was like pretty much just a one page full of photos with like a big caption that was like, the title of the article, and then another thing that just basically was like, the full like infantry experience game. And it was like, it could have been like somebody, my sister is a very accomplished person. And she was pointing out to me, like, as I was pointing out to her, like, I don't know if mom and dad told you, but I'm not sure if you saw it yet. Did you see the article about me? I'm not sure. Mom and dad probably told you, right? They already told you, right? But as I was doing that to her, she was like, this is worth like $150,000. Like, that's how much it would cost to get a full page advertising your business.
Yeah.
So I was really pleased with the end result, and I thought the guys who did it were super cool. And I do tell people at the safety brief, especially during election season, like, don't have political discussions at this event. That's not what we're here for. Have a political discussion as it relates to the scenario.
Yeah.
But we don't want to hear like your opinions on virology or like Marxism or whatever your deal is. Like, I'm not interested.
No, I get you on that. And do you feel like that article has helped to grow Airsoft and probably maybe welcome new players in, or?
I mean, I hope so. I know it's gotten me some new venues.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I know it's gotten me venues because people have seen it and they're like, man, we're looking for a promoter to come into this property that we have that's like hard to use otherwise. I mean, as far as new players coming in, I think that's just happening all the time anyway.
Okay.
I've been in this hobby for like, I guess 15 years now. And I think the pandemic has probably helped it, if anything, because the sales have been like way up. Like all the retailers, Elite Force, who supplies all the BBs for Milsim West, they're out of stock on shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Nigel just plussed me up and was like, hey man, I don't know when the next boat's coming here, so like make it last. So he just sent me like 2 million BBs or something. Luckily I didn't get pulled over on the way home. It might be over my plastic limit in the state of Illinois or something. But
so in general, because of the pandemic, you feel like Airsoft has grown. Do you feel like it's retaining the players that, say, were here like a year ago now?
I mean, so EVIC as a business has done some pretty good research into this, just to see like, how much people spend, how long they stay involved, that kind of thing. And I gotta kind of, like, I think they're right. The average client is in it for about 1.5 to 2 years. And then they get out of it and they get into something else. That's how most people go through hobbies. But I also know from just like doing these events for so long, like, man, there are people that come to 5 events a year with me for the last 7 years, and there's so many of them, like, I couldn't say all their names.
Yeah.
I could probably say half of their names and then recognize half of them by face. But it wouldn't be the same half because it's like a lot of people, Like, I mean, Milsim West does between 3,000, 3,500 people in a non-COVID year, in ticket sales and like, or in tickets rather. And like, I bet you 1,000 of those are repeats, right? 1,000 of those are like probably the same 200 or 300 people.
Yeah. That
just like love it and they just keep coming. But that's probably only, like I said, that's probably like what, like 20%, 15, 20% of the hobby. The bulk of the hobby is people that they get it, they play for a couple years, they grow out of it, they do something else. So, because a lot of people want to talk, like, this is just my personal philosophy. A lot of people want to talk about like the Airsoft community, but it's really a population. And then we have communities within that population, right? You got your local field community, you got your promotional event-based communities, you got, communities that revolve around certain stores or, certain kinds of,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
I mean, there's some people that they just like come to, there's like whole Airsoft communities where it's like, oh yeah, this is just the one Airsoft thing we all do every year.
Wow.
I mean, I know people like that. Like, I know local communities where there'll be like this, I see the same 5 to 10 guys every year at the same event, and I'll get to talking with them, and it's like, oh yeah, where else do you guys play? And they're like, oh no, nowhere.
No,
we just come to
this.
We just come to one like super hardcore 40-hour format. But I mean, I'm sure there are people that do that with other events. You got to imagine that all those scenes have their own stuff going on like that. So,
and do you feel like I talked about Airsoft Burnout, but do you feel like that burnout in Airsoft is like a real thing that happens after a year or two of, consistent play, or every so often people get bored, they want to try something different?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just natural in hobbies, right? Because like people get into their hobbies for like, catharsis, and sometimes it's not cathartic, or maybe they don't want catharsis, but like they're not getting whatever it is that they wanted out of it, right? So then they swap. Like, I can think of, it's like hard for me to have hobbies now, just because this was my primary hobby, and now it's not, because it's my job. So it's like, I've gone through a couple different hobbies, like in the last probably 6 years, where I've like finally been like, come to the realization that this is what I do for work, right? I've gone through like 6 hobbies where I like bought a bunch of stuff for a hobby, and then like a year and a half later, I'm like, I don't really like that anymore. So I couldn't tell you exactly why, but I definitely think that's something that happens.
Okay. Okay. As far as the toxic part of airsoft,
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's a child's game. We're adults playing a child's game, so it's like, I mean, I don't know how to describe that other than like, as it turns out, some people are poorly behaved, right?
Yeah.
Like, for a variety of reasons, right? We all have behaviors that can be bad, and I think when people are, I mean, it's like why people act bad at resorts. Like why is the resort pool always all full of fucking baddies, right? Because everyone's on vacation, right? So it's like, I'm on vacation. I'm gonna poo right here. Like, right. If I go to jail, not in my hometown, does it really count? Right? Like, I don't know how to explain that, but it's like, it's the reason people leave trash behind at events, because I'll be picking up trash where it's like, we just told you, like, look, just, you don't even have to do anything with the trash. Just please put it in a bag and put it at these spots by the road, right? And we'll come pick it up. And then like the event will be over and I'll be like, who the fuck left like, just like their own personal food trash and baby wipes that like, maybe that's poo, maybe that's not poo. Who just like left this shit here? Because people just like, they forget. And when people are in their like hobby space, I mean, that's it. It's like when people are online, we say whatever the fuck we want because there's no social consequences, right? And there's very few people that are like that brash or outspoken in person. Like that's just rare. But I think when people go to hobby-based events, they feel more comfortable kind of just like letting it all. So, so
some thoughts from you, like in regards to, your role in airsoft. I feel like you and Milsim West have a role in airsoft where it's like, you guys are up here, you guys are kind of like the ushering in of people into airsoft, that Milsim space. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's probably true just because like there aren't really a lot of other, that's it. Like that's the hardcore top of the hobby, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I also have this other promotion as well. Like I really enjoy the stuff that we're doing with Desert Fox events, and I think like the product that we have out there is like really reasonable. In fact, the main thing for me lately, as far as like trying to make sure that I'm promoting that product accurately, is I'll have customers at that game sometimes that are like, man, this is my first time at a Milsim, and I'll be like, well, this isn't really a Milsim. Like this is an airsoft game that has like some Milsim element in it, like as far as there's a Blue Force tracker that you need to use. And then usually, what, I felt bad because usually I'll like when people are like, oh, I want even harder than this, man. This isn't tough enough for me, bro. I'm snakier. I'm like, oh man, do I have the game for you, brother? But one of these last Desert Fox events I was just doing, there was this guy who was just terrible. He was just like so poorly behaved the whole game. Because when I'm admitting people and like there's a disruption, like usually when I'm confronting somebody who's emotional, I try and like fall back, like stay calm and fall back on 2 things, right? Either you're being unsafe or you're behaving badly, right? And just like, no, I'm not trying to fight with you. I just need to tell you this one thing, which is you're being unsafe or you're behaving badly. And like, I just, there was this guy that it was just like, I had like 3 times I had to be like, hey man, you're just behaving badly right now. Like these guys are calling their heads as far as I can tell, like there's nothing to be mad about. Like, hey man, there's no safe distance. That guy has like a SMG. He shot you. You know what I mean? Like that's fair play.
Just accept it.
Yeah, you shouldn't curse at him. You're just behaving badly, dude. You're just behaving badly. And this dude comes up to me after the game, and he was a very out of shape person as well. And he was like, I heard that at Milsim West you can carry as much pyro as you want. And I was like, I'm gonna be frank with you, my friend. Like normally I try and promote my shit, but like you should not do that. You should not do that at all. If you think you're going to my game in 3 months, bro, you need like a personal trainer and like a fucking Jenny Craig like freezer meal section like right now. You need to hydrate. you only got 88 days left to hydrate. You know what I mean? Like, and you're pretty dumb. Like, I've seen you behave badly and not hydrate all day long. You know, it's all like number 1 and number 2 violations. You're not being safe because you're not hydrating, and you're behaving badly, and you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
And I realized in that moment, like, maybe I was a little too frank, and I should have just been like, "Yeah, man, sign up."
I mean, I feel like in Airsoft, you have to be direct and tell people what it is, because there's so much sugarcoating and holding hands and all of this.
Well, I mean, overwhelmingly, like, what is the conventional wisdom in event promotion? You give the customer what they want, right? And like, when I'm doing a DFE game, that is what I do. You know, when someone's like, "Hey, can I use this pink fucking laser fish gun?" I'm like, whatever, man. Wear whatever you want. I hope you're having a good time. Hey, is the app working for you? You know what I mean? Like, can I show you how to refresh it? Like, okay, great, have fun. Oh, here's a water bottle. You didn't bring any water? No problem. I got water for you. I just happen to have a bunch in my truck because I know that, you're dumb and you would need this, right? Like 50% of you would be doing thing number 1 or thing number 2. So at least I can handle the dehydrated people. And, but when I'm in Milsim West, like, I do enjoy being like, what, you don't have a sleeping bag? Well, you got 2.5 hours till game start. You better go get one.
Yeah.
Right, like, you don't know what you're supposed to be doing? Well, you better fucking check the shit that you got sent and, like, read it.
Yeah,
like, no, I'm not going to tell you how to fuck the goat. You have to figure it out yourself. Like, here's the goat, here's the thing, like, figure it out, man. So I like doing both things. You know what I mean? Because that keeps it fresh for me, right? Because if every event that I worked was a Milsim West event, man, like, that's physically challenging. Like if I'm just doing straight admin stuff, I'm at a minimum just sleeping in my truck, not showering, like sleeping in the back of my vehicle, right? Like sitting by a radio all the time, sitting by a phone all the time, waiting for somebody to call me and be like, "Hey, some customer's hurt. Can you get him, drive him out to wherever? Hey, somebody's grandma died again. Can you come out and get them?" Because, like, grandmas just die like crazy on Saturday night at Milsim West. They just dropping like flies. And, that'd be hard. So it's nice to do Desert Fox events where it's like, I work hard during the day, we get a night game, and then I get to go back to a hotel or something. I don't have to run around and do every single thing. Like, I don't have to set up flags for the objectives. I literally have an app. I can balance it out. I don't have to scream and shout because I can pretty much put all the information I need to out to the players using my thumbs and using the app. Yeah. And so, it's, I like doing both. Like, I used to work in an arena before I started Milsim West, and I really liked arena rep. Like, that was a fun gig, I used to really enjoy that. So I kind of get that, like, flavor. I get that flavor. I try and bring that flavor to Desert Fox events. That kind of, like, we're going to play fun games. We're going to play quick games, right? They're going to be fair games. Everyone's going to have a good time. And when doing Milsim West, I like that, like, classic, like, since I was 6 years old fantasy where you're like, you're all out, like, in the woods by the old barn with your friends, like, fucking shooting cap guns at each other and, like, plotting shit on maps. So that's what I'm trying to provide, is just, like, I guess, like, quality events in both of those spectrums for people.
So that's your goal within Airsoft, just provide quality fun for everyone. I mean,
like,
I think
quality special events on a regular basis that are, produced in a thoughtful way, that are gonna, give people enjoyment and a reason to use their stuff.
Got it.
In a social way,
No, I think that's great. Giving people that social experience of both Milsim West and Desert Fox events. Desert Fox events is more relaxed, whereas Milsim West is that hardcore, die hard, come prepared or you're gonna die type situation.
Well, except for the insurgency events, because there's enough vendors you could kind of, like, feed yourself in the game. But we're about to add an ultra hardcore MSW format for, you know what I mean, for the people that was like the force on force isn't enough, insurgency's like too weak. They need that, like, super espresso ground Milsim or whatever. So I need to fight 24/7, 48-hour type thing. No, it's like that's already happening. It's for the people that like, I want to walk 5 miles, like Like I want to get scored against, I want to be rated against other players. You know what I mean? Like I want that next level of challenge, right?
What's after this? How can you evolve what you already provide?
Well, it is. Because some of the force on force games, it's like you might not move that far really, because they're, whoever the commanders are, they're trying to round up or round down to the lowest participant ability on their team, right? Because if 40% of your team is like morbidly obese, you got to round down to something. So you're like, all right, I guess we'll just walk a half mile to the first position, because like that's probably if I only have 50% of my team left, well, that blows the fucking game plan. Yeah. So some of those games, like they can be hard, but like they can also be easy. Depends on what your ability level is, and there's definitely people who play them who are like at a much higher physical ability level and like want to only compete with people that do that, if that makes sense.
No, I get you. Okay. So as we close out, any words of wisdom, things that you want to let people know in regards to Milsim West, DFE, new player coming to Airsoft, having fun in Airsoft?
Yeah, I would say the main thing is, don't try and make your hobby into a business too fast. I think, actually, circling back to the burnout thing, I think a lot of people who do hit burn out because they make their hobby a business too fast, and that's just not sustainable. So remember that you're like here to enjoy yourself, and once you decide what it is that you enjoy, don't let my belligerent marketing make you go to a Milsim West if you don't want to. But if you do want to and you're not going, then you should, and you are less of a person and a coward if you want to go and you're not going. But if you don't want to go at all, then you should go to Desert Fox events. That's basically it. Like, it's a hobby for enjoyment. Don't take it too seriously. If my posts on the internet are getting you riled up, you're probably taking it too seriously, or you need to buy a Milsim West ticket. One of the two.
Yeah, and that's it from Josh Warren. Thank you guys for listening, watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.